I'm Jolene Wynn, and this is the Porn Addict's Wife Podcast, episode number 213, Potential Energy. If your husband is struggling with a pornography problem and you want some help with it and you are not finding the resources that you like, you are in the right place. My name is Jolene Wynn. I am a certified life coach. I am an active member of the LDS faith, and I am the wife of a former porn addict. And on this podcast, I am going to share with you the tools that you need in order to start your healing journey. This is where I'm going to show you how to dive deep into intentional living, how to rekindle connection with your spouse, how to manage all that emotional turmoil that you're feeling, how to break the addiction cycle that you have to your husband's addiction, and tell you all of the ways to do that and start healing. I am so glad that you're here, and I can't wait to get started. Let's go. Hello, my ladies. How are you? I am so excited to be talking to you guys today. I am very excited about what I'm going to talk about. I'm actually going to combine two ideas for a podcast, and I'm just rolling them into one. And so bear with me, because in my brain they make sense in how they go together. And sometimes that makes more sense in my head than it does actually when it comes out of my mouth. So I have an outline here. Hopefully it will all flow and you guys will follow it. And I am excited to talk about this today. Don't worry, I know it sounds like a science class, but it's not going to be a science class. I'm not very sciencey, obviously, and so it will be very, very basic, but it's something that I've been thinking about for the last couple of weeks. And for those of you who don't know, real quick, today, the day this comes out, June 24th, is the first day of my How to Solve Your Business Problems workshop. This is so fun for those of you guys who are coaches, entrepreneurs, direct sales, direct marketing, what is it called? Influencers, whoever you are, if you have if you teach piano lessons or you have a photography business, come join me. This is so fun. I'll put the link in the show notes. I'm going to be spending the next 4 days every day going live on Zoom at 12 p.m. Eastern. And I have a very simple process that I'm going to be taking everyone through and workshopping this so that we clearly identify the current problem in your business and then create a personalized, we're going to map out a personalized strategy to solve it, and then create an action plan to implement that strategy in your business so that you can solve the problem. And it's going to be done with a lot of coaching. And I can't wait to talk about business. One of the things about entrepreneurs, which is very similar to being the wife of a porn addict, is it can be a little lonely. Most people don't understand the things that you're dealing with. They don't understand what it's like to try and run a business and juggle everything else. So if you're feeling that way, come join me. Check the link in the show notes or go to my website, jolenewynn.com. You will see the business workshop tab. Even if you did miss today, no problem. You will have access to the replays. So go sign up and come live if you can, because every day is going to build on each other. And I'm just super excited to dive into this. So come join us. Okay, today I want to talk about potential energy. I don't know why this topic came to my head. Maybe it's because my husband is now officially retired and he is doing all of the homeschooling and he loves science, and he's been talking to me about the curriculum that he found and all the things they're going to do. And I don't know. It just came to me the other day and I was thinking about potential energy. So if you guys throw back to your physical science days, your biology in high school, whatever it was, potential energy is the energy that's held by an object. It's basically what's possible. Okay, so you as an object, you have a potential energy. There is potential inside of you. That is the P word that my brothers always hated that my parents would say. They would hate when my parents would say, you have a certain potential, and they hated that word because it's what is possible for you, and that's all held within you. That is your potential energy. It's the energy that's already within you, and it's held there, and it's what's possible for you. Now, there's a difference between your potential energy and your kinetic energy. Okay? Kinetic energy is the energy that an object has because of its motion. Okay? It is energy in action. That is the energy of movement. That is kinetic energy. It's the energy that you get from moving. I know a lot of you are sitting there thinking, I don't get a lot of energy from moving. In fact, it depletes my energy to move. And I totally understand it. But think of a ball rolling down a hill. Okay, at the top of the hill, the ball has a lot of potential energy. When it starts to roll down the hill, that is when it picks up speed because of its mass. and it starts to roll down the hill all on its own. It gathers speed, and that speed is the kinetic energy. It has a lot of energy in the motion, okay? Now, here is the thing. If you want to move from potential energy to kinetic energy, from what's possible to actually making it happen, you must apply force. So if you think of the ball at the top of the hill, it could just sit there forever. It's never going to turn potential energy into kinetic energy unless a force is applied behind it and starts the energy movement down the hill. Does that make sense? So in order to move from where you are now, from what's possible, into actually making it happen, you actually have to have force, okay? Force has to be acted upon you. Now, we can either, number one, wait for life to apply the force to us and then just kind of cross our fingers and see where we would end up. Or two, we apply the force ourselves. And we can generate that force internally and intentionally steer ourselves where we want to go. Do you guys see the difference? One of these happens, you guys, sometimes life happens. Sometimes forces act upon us. Sometimes circumstances shift. Sometimes your husband has a pornography problem and you had no idea. Sometimes he relapsed out of nowhere. Sometimes things happen. Circumstances shift. Sometimes life forces us to move or is at least pushing. Okay? But you have the ability always to take that force, to take that energy and intentionally steer yourself where you want to go. So again, you can wait for life to start trying to push you. You always have the choice of whether or not you're going to move. Unlike the ball at the top of the hill, you will always be strong enough to choose whether or not you're going to budge, okay? So sometimes we can just sit and we can wait for life to happen and then just kind of hope that we end up in a place that's nice. But most of the time, ladies, as you know, it's not usually the case. Or this is the one that I recommend, and the one that's going to get you the life that you want, is to create the force yourself, is to generate that force required to change you from potential energy to kinetic energy. And that is all generated internally. And this is the best news, because this means that when you do this, you get to steer yourself in the direction that you want to go. And that's what I absolutely love about this, about kinetic energy and you being the force that acts upon yourself. Now, how do you know if you're in potential energy or kinetic energy? Most of you will know just by listening to this podcast. You'll be like, this is where I am. I can tell that I'm in potential energy. But sometimes we think we're in kinetic energy and we're not. And I want to talk about a few of those right now so that you can clearly identify whether or not you're in kind of a false kinetic energy, a false productivity, okay? It's something that feels really productive, feels positive, it uses energy, but it doesn't actually create the result that you're looking for, okay? It's kind of like spinning your wheels, all right? So you're just or running in place. Even think about it as running in place. You are using a ton of energy and going nowhere. So here are just a few examples. Number one is worry or anxiety. Worry or anxiety feels really productive. It actually even feels really responsible. And what this usually looks like is just sitting and thinking. Now, this is so fascinating because my husband used to think that his thinking, he called it overthinking, or his ability to think was his superpower. He really thought that his ability to sit and think about something for hours was like the thing that made him smarter than everyone else. And all it was really anxiety. And he didn't know that until he started learning about his brain. So it's so fascinating because our brain will trick us into thinking that it's doing something really good, really positive, so that it can continue that pattern. But it doesn't actually make anything happen. All it's doing is sitting there and thinking about things that could happen and creating a lot of anxiety in the present. One of the biggest examples that I see of this is when you have a worry or anxiety about your husband relapsing again in the future. Again, our brain thinks it's really responsible to worry about it, to think about it. You might not even call it worry, you might just call it thinking. And it has this lie that thinking about it or worrying about it is going to make you more prepared if it happens. And that's not true. And let me give you guys an example of this. And I gave this on a client call the other day. I was coaching a client when we were talking about this, and I said, Imagine that you're driving a car. Now, it's totally possible that when you drive a car, you could get a flat tire, 100%. Now, is worrying about that every time you get in the car or before you get in the car, or, oh my gosh, I'm going to drive tomorrow to go to the store. What if I get a flat tire at the time? What happens? What do I do? What do I do if I get a flat tire? I don't know what I'm going to do. This has happened before and it was so terrible and it was such a bad experience and I don't want that to happen again. That's worrying. And it doesn't actually make you any more prepared if your tire actually goes flat while you're driving. The thing that makes you prepared for that to happen is having the right tools. Having all the tools that you need at the time to deal with the situation at hand. That is what coaching is. That's what I do in my coaching program. I give you the tools to know what to do if your husband relapses so that you don't have to worry about it. Because all the worry ahead of time doesn't make you any more prepared in the moment if it happens. What makes you prepared is having the tools to handle the situation and solve it so that you can keep moving forward. Does that make sense? So worry feels really productive. We think that it's really important. Our brain likes it because it feels productive, but it doesn't actually make us any more productive or get us the result that we want. Okay? It doesn't make us any more prepared for the thing that we're worrying about. The second thing, the second false positive here, the kind of thing that feels productive but isn't, it's a false productivity, is planning. This is another thing that my husband likes to do. He had so many slips of paper, so many napkins where he wrote out a 5-year plan. Not a one of them has ever come true, okay? But I remember him starting to do this when we dated as freshmen in college. He mapped out what the next 5 years was gonna look like, okay? And it would be like, all right, I'm gonna graduate at this time. Jolene's gonna graduate at this time. At the time, I was gonna join the Army. And so it was like, this is how many years she has of active duty. This is where we would be. This is how long we would be married. This is when we could have kids. That all sounds really nice and it feels really productive. It's a false sense of control because so much can go on between now and then, and you're not, again, actually producing something. Now, does this mean that it's a bad idea to plan things out? No. If you're in charge of something, I absolutely recommend doing a little bit of planning ahead of time so that you don't forget things. Like when I host my in-person retreat every year, I plan it. I plan how many people there are going to be, and I plan all of these swag bags, and I order things ahead of time, and I prepare ahead of time, and I plan out what it is that I'm going to teach, and all of the events that we're going to do while we're there. And those are all wonderful things, but then you actually have to take it into action in order to make it productive. Okay? Planning feels really productive, and most of us don't even take it to the point where we write it down on a piece of paper. Most of the time, the planning, quote unquote, is going on in our heads, and most of it is just anxiety, but we'll call it planning if your brain calls it planning, but that is a false productivity. It's our plan. It's things like, okay, let's do some examples. If you're planning, quote unquote, to go back to school, if you are planning to go back to school when the kids leave the house or when your littlest goes to school. Or if you are making a plan to buy something you want in your head. Okay, well, I could, but it's very vague. And here's what I mean by this. It's like, okay, well, maybe when all of the kids are out of diapers, I could use the amount of money that we spent on diapers every month and put it toward X, Y, or Z. That's the mental planning. But until you actually take the action of taking the money that you spent on diapers and putting it aside in a savings account and saving it for XYZ in particular, it's never going to happen. It's just a plan. It's just a nice idea. And it doesn't actually get you the result that you're looking for. Okay? The other thing, the third thing, right? So we're talking about our false productivity things. Number 1, worry. Number 2, planning. Number 3 is passive consumption. And this is probably the biggest one that I have seen. This is where we're still in potential energy, okay? Remember thinking of the ball at the top of the hill? This is where we are. We're sitting at the ball. We're the ball at the top of the hill. We're sitting at the top of the hill. Passive consumption. And what this looks like is talking to friends about whatever it is. Writing down or texting a friend about how you want to start a business. It is passively consuming advice from other people, reading self-help books, listening to podcasts. That is passive consumption. It's energy coming in not going out. And if it's just coming in, all it's doing is adding to your potential energy, which is great. Now we have even more potential energy, but we're still not going anywhere. And this is where I think a lot of people get stuck, is in this false productivity of potential energy, because it feels really good. It feels like you're doing a lot of stuff. Like if you ever talk to somebody who says, I have tried everything to lose weight, most of the time they haven't tried everything, but they've spent a lot of time worrying about it or planning about how they're going to do it or consuming reels on Instagram or Pinterest recipes or consuming podcasts on how to lose weight. But they're not actually taking the steps, the physical steps that it takes in order to do it. Making the life changes, going from stage number 1, which is potential energy, into stage number 2, which is kinetic energy, and getting the ball rolling toward the destination where they want to go. Does this make sense? Are you guys with me? So I want you guys to just take a moment and reflect. Okay, where am I in potential energy? And where am I? Are there places where I'm in potential energy, but I think it's kinetic energy? I think I'm moving forward. I think I'm pushing the needle forward. And this can be in your business or in your personal life. For those of you on this podcast, I'm talking about your personal life mostly, right? Where are you thinking that you're taking yourself forward, but you're actually not? Okay, you're doing great things, like listening to this podcast is amazing. Is it going to get you where you want to go? No, it's not. It's a passive consumption. It is a filling up your potential energy. And now is the fun part where your potential energy is so full. Ladies, you guys are full of potential energy. There are so many places you could go. You have so much forward progress in you. It just takes a little push. And in this potential energy, in these false productivities, we are lying to ourselves saying that we are quote unquote trying, or that we are quote unquote starting to work on it. Well, I'm starting to work on losing weight. I'm trying to lose weight. I'm trying to move past my husband's pornography problem. I'm trying to change what I believe about myself. I'm starting to work on my thoughts. Those are all wonderful things. And if you're actually doing the active work of doing that, great. Most of the time we get stuck, and I want you to just do a self-audit here. Where are you staying stuck in potential energy and calling it kinetic energy to feel better about not doing the thing that's going to actually move you forward? Does that make sense? You'll know this when you are frustrated by your lack of results. Okay? Especially when you're being 100% honest and you're looking at yourself. And I do this work too, ladies. There are so many places in my life where I am telling myself that I am in kinetic energy, and it's not true. I do this all the time, this self-audit. That's where this podcast came from, okay? And I get frustrated by my lack of results. I'm not losing weight. My business isn't making the money that I want to. My relationships aren't going the way that I want. I don't have the relationship with this best friend that I was looking for or that I want to have. This doesn't look like how I want in my life. That's how you're going to know that things aren't where you want it to go. I'm still struggling with this emotion. I can't believe I still feel this way about myself. I can't believe I'm still dealing with this. If you have any of those kinds of thoughts, that's an indication that you are not getting the results that you want, and it's probably because you're still in potential energy, okay? Today in church, someone in church was talking, and they gave like a talk in church, kind of like a sermon. And they gave they were talking about Alice in Wonderland. I don't even remember the last time I saw Alice in Wonderland. I think it's a really weird show. I don't love it, but there is a point that I love, and it's about where she comes to a crossroads, and it's a path, and it has two options. There's two paths, and Alice doesn't know which way to go. And so the Cheshire Cat comes and he says, she goes, which one do I take? And he says, well, where do you want to go? And she said, well, I don't know. And he said, well, then it doesn't really matter. If you don't know where you want to go, it doesn't matter which path you take, right? If you don't know your destination, ladies, if you aren't clear on where you're headed, or you do know, but you're not doing what it takes to get there, then you're going to be really frustrated. You get to decide, ladies, and I think that that's one of the biggest things that we abdicate. I think we abdicate our agency in choosing our destination. Do you always get to choose what life hands to you? No, you do not. Do you always get to choose how other people behave, especially your spouse? No, you do not. But you can always choose what you do as a result of it. You always get to choose how you show up, even though it happened. This is your kinetic energy. There is a force that is acting against you. You're full of potential energy right now. There's a force acting against you. Are you going to let it just steer you wherever it wants to go? Or are you going to take control and steer yourself? That's the big question for you. Either you're on the wrong path with this false productivity and it's not leading you where you want to go and you're frustrated, or you're on the right track. You're on the right path, but you haven't gone far enough and you feel stuck. Either way, you need guidance and correction. So I have some questions here. As you guys do this work this week, I would love it if you actually took this with you, okay? Did these exercises, these questions that I'm talking about here in the podcast, and actually take a moment to self-reflect. Where am I in potential energy? Where am I in kinetic energy? Where am I thinking I'm in kinetic energy, but I'm not? Am I doing any of those things that are those false positives, those things that feel really productive, but they're not? Do I have a clear destination in mind of where I want to go? And here's some questions that you can ask yourself to help you with that, okay? So let's take a look at it. Where do you want to go? Take a moment and close your eyes if you can and think about it. Take the time right now while you're listening to this. You've already taken the time out of your day to do it. Just open your mind up to it. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to end up? What do you want your life to look like 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 5 years from now? Do you want to still be worried about what's on his phone? Do you want to still be worried about the things you're worried about right now? Do you want to still be dealing with the same emotions that you're dealing with today, that you dealt with yesterday and a year ago? Do you still want to not go on that trip because it's at a beach? Do you want to still be thinking these same thoughts about yourself, or do you want something completely different? Do you want to be able to enjoy physical intimacy with him again? Do you want to be able to plan a family beach trip and not even spend one moment of the entire time worried or even looking at what other women are wearing on the beach? Do you want to love what you see when you look in the mirror? Do you want to feel confident in your skin? And especially when he reaches to kiss you. Do you want to know that you can handle another relapse if it happens? Do you want to trust him again? Imagine freeing yourself from the resentment and the bitterness and the anger and the hurt that's just weighing you down. If that's where you want to go, then take a moment and ask yourself, am I on the path right now that's going to get me there? And if not, then I want to ask you to commit today to doing the thing that's going to change it to get you there. Force yourself. Be the force that moves you from that potential energy into motion. Motion is what's going to move you, ladies. And I know that one of the biggest reasons why we stay stuck at the top of the hill is because we are afraid that what happens if I start moving and it's the wrong direction? What if I make a mistake? What if I choose the wrong thing? What if I start going forward and it's the wrong path? What if I join this program and I hate it or it doesn't work for me? Or what if I take this next step and it doesn't actually lead to where I want it to go? Great. Then you'll know it sooner than if you just stood at the top and wondered. There is no downside to moving forward. Life will either force you or you can force yourself. And if you force yourself, then you get to choose where you want to go and how fast you get there. That's the beautiful thing about being in charge. And ladies, you are in charge. I love teaching you guys here on the podcast, but I want to take this even deeper. I want to help you even more so that you can actually get the results that you're looking for rather than just hoping that they come to you one day. If you are ready for that, if you are ready to shift from potential energy into kinetic energy and actually see what is possible for you and actually get the results that you're looking for, then come join me today. Join right directly at my website, jolenewind.com. You can sign up today for lifetime access. I will always be there. So if he relapses 6 months from now, you can come back. This is not something that you just have to join and get everything out of in the next month. It will always be there for you. I will always be there for you, teaching you exactly what you need to know, giving you the tools that you need so that you don't have to worry about what's going to happen in the future, because you know that you can handle it, because you have all the tools that you need to be able to handle that situation. That's how it's possible to work through this and break free and heal from your husband's pornography problem. Even if he never does, even if he keeps struggling with this, you don't have to. That's what's possible for you. It's all there in that potential energy that you're holding up. It's time to move forward. All right, ladies, I love you all so much. I will see you guys next week on a brand new episode. So take care. All right, ladies, if you enjoyed this podcast, then I want to invite you to come join my coaching program. This is where we take everything on the podcast and we actually get to apply it in order to transform your life. And I know that that is a big promise, but it's 100% true. On the podcast, it's like learning how to ride a bike. It's like reading a book, an instruction manual via audio on how to ride a bike. And my coaching program is where you actually ride the bike. And that is what creates the transformation. This is what actually enables you to go from point A to point B, to actually create the transformation that you are seeking. If you are feeling stuck, if you are feeling like you are loving everything, but you just can't see the end from where you are now, then I want to help you. Come work with me one-on-one. I have a lifetime access program, which means it doesn't expire. You come work with me, I will help you every step of the way and work with you personally to make sure that you get where you want to go. I can't wait to see you there. Head to my website today, joleneWynn.com, and sign up.